Hi everyone. Today markets did sell off really aggressively pre-market, hit some key levels and then rallied through most of the session. And then we had some weird movement into the end of the session, but we have some key levels to work with. Continues to downtrend, but let's take a look at some of those levels and see if we can find some direction for tomorrow. Do me a quick favor and like and subscribe and watch the video till the end to help out the channel, and let's get started. So looking at fear and greed, we stepped down to a 28 from a 34, continuing to go a little bit lower here today, back into extreme fear on momentum. Strength on the NYSE, extremely low levels at a negative 1.36. Again, still sitting at 52-week lows. Interesting there. Breadth, sideways choppy on today's session. Interesting. Put call ratio continues to downtrend a little bit. Volatility continues to go up. Makes sense with the down move that we saw early in the session. Looking at safe haven demand, downtrending, still in fear. Junk bonds basically flat, still in fear. Moving over to the max pain for this week, you can see it's all positive from here all the way up through mid-January. We'll see if that ends up playing out, but in that 595, 594 area for the S&Ps, bullish max pain through the end of the week and really through next week as well. Moving over to the SPY charts here, you can see we downtrended. We gapped down and fell, doji candle, hit the trend, hit the level, 585.91, the same zone that we touched back from Wednesday and Thursday of last week. So we basically round trip this move now. Interesting, we're touching that key support level, momentum back to bearish, RSI stepping down. I thought we might see a little bit of a rally after the Friday session. We saw a lot of buying at the end of the session, but we gave all of that back in the pre-market and then pushed right back down to the 585 level. If that zone breaks, your next one is 579.87. We did see a little bit of selling after hours, about 50 cents on the SPY. It's going to be worse on the NASDAQ. Interesting to see that, but you have your key levels there and we can see it on the 15-minute chart here for the SPY. Big sell pre-market, rallied mid-session, hit that 55 EMA, which has been resistance. You can see it here, resistance, sold off from there, retested it, sold off into the end of the session. You can see the volume coming through at the end of that session on that candle and then selling off. Flat after hours, which is interesting. I thought we might sell off a little bit more with how aggressive the sell was into the end of the session. But right now, I would at least expect a 585.91 touch the trends, and then see if it's going to hold a double bottom. Right now, it hasn't. So you have a low, lower low on the 15-minute charts. And then looking at the hourly, just to give you that kind of couple day look, the more relative low is that 579.78 level, touch that level and then bounce from there. So if we did fall into that zone, you could argue it's a double bottom from there. But based off this short-term trend, low, lower low, I would expect at least one more lower low. Then looking at the Tasty charts here just for a second, you can see we've way overthrown these ATR bands, pulled back into the range. Again, way overthrow, pulled back into the range. My guess is that this continues at least for one more session, so you should expect a move well below the ATR bands on the hourly, which is currently at 586.04. Then looking at that 4-hour chart, current ATR band is 589.42, so we've already closed below that. Might see a little bit of sideways choppy action just because of how extended we are. And then with the moves over the Friday and Monday, now you can see we're still in bearish conditions. ATR trailing stop up there at 599.51. Then moving over to the NASDAQ, this looks more and more like this trend is going to hold now. So we're well below the 21 and the 9 EMAs, headed towards that 55 all the way down at 507.81. You do have a level in there, 509.74, but at this point I would expect that to break. And then we get a step down to that 55, which would bring you down to this trend here. You do have the medium uptrend there as well, which was established back here August, and then the second touch was September. So we'll see if we get down to that level. My guess is that we probably do with the sell that we ended up seeing today. And like I said, big selling after hours on the NASDAQ as well. And you can see that here. This is the 15-minute chart. You can see big sell into the end of the session, huge volume relative to everything else right at the end of the session, flat at the level, and now we're breaking down below it in the after hours price action. Again, 509.74, that's what I would be looking for in that next area. And I would probably not touch this until we get there. You could argue maybe for a double bottom if we get in here and hold some price action, but I would be patient. I think we're probably going to see 3 steps down on this push into this zone here. Then moving over to the NASDAQ on the Tasty charts, you can see well below this ATR band on the 4-hour, basically the same chart as the SPY, just a little bit more movement for the NASDAQ. Not a ton of volume, continues to sell below the ATR bands and extended. Current ATR trailing stop is going to be 527.88. which is your bearish condition here to the upside. Then moving to the Russell and the Dow. The Russell did fall 0.77 right to the level, 218.13, touched that level, retraced all of that move. Doji candle, selling just a little bit after after hours, so it is selling, but not nearly as bad, only like 30 cents in there. So it's holding up much better than the NASDAQ, and you can see the Dow, similar move. Gap down, doji, big wicks to both sides. If we get a gap up and rally, that would be interesting. But with this high, lower high now, rejection off the 55, seems like markets have kind of succumbed to a potential bigger sell in my opinion. Momentum stepping back down to bearish conditions, and then RSI's both bearish, stepping down a little further. The only thing that I do potentially like here for the Russell is that double touch at the 218 level, and then continues to find support after the touch there on the Friday. Moving over to the Mag 7, this looks like a true topping formation at this point for me. High, lower high, big sell-off off of there. 3 continuation candles after the attempted retouch. Momentum bearish, RSI still bearish, down 1.5%. Selling about another $1 after hours, continuing to look bad. 55 EMA now at 301.07. This will continue to trend up as this continues to trend down. In my opinion, maybe we come down, retest this high here in the 302 to maybe 305.50 area. But right now I would expect a lower low. Moving over to Apple and Microsoft. Apple was down 1.3%, Microsoft basically identical. Interesting to see those moving in the same direction, in the same amount. Momentum back to bearish, RSI breaking down, 21 EMA touch imminent at 248.70 in my opinion, clean below that 9 EMA. Everything says this should go a little bit lower, at least in the short term. And then looking at Microsoft, similarly, gap down and fall, not as much of a doji, so that's a little bit weaker in my opinion. Momentum definitely more bearish, RSI definitely more bearish. 200 SMA got touched. I'm pretty sure we talked about that in the Friday last week video and then the weekend video. That is definitely where we were looking. Now your next level, 413.36. At this point, I think we're probably going to get there. If it's going to hold the higher low, definitely needs to do it here soon, just to give that some potential structure for the higher low. That would give you a 420.58 area, touch that level, and then push to a higher high from there if it's going to do it, or at least hold the level and maybe push into this zone here, 437. But either way, needs to hold here, otherwise it's going to push to that 413.36 area. Moving over to Tesla and NVIDIA. Tesla clean double top, at least that's what it looks like for me. Level 414.50, selling off about 50 cents after, a little bit less. It's right at the level of 414.50. Technically it's below the level after hours, 414.16. 21 EMA right there as well, 413.17. If these zones break, I think we're headed to the trend in the 384.50 area. Momentum bearish, RSI bearish. And then looking at NVIDIA, continues to be in this down channel, testing that upper resistance, can't get above it. 140.76 is the key level to the upside. If it can get above that, I think we're going to be in good shape. Look for the trend line break. If it continues to reject off of here, I would expect it push at least to the 144 down at 127.66, and then trend support in here at 124.01, 124.80, somewhere in there, and then my level 124.69. Moving over to Amazon and Alphabet, both of these looking like a topping pattern, high, lower high. On both of these, continuing to sell today, 1% and 0.7% respectively. Alphabet selling almost $1 after hours. Amazon down about the same, about $1 after hours. Momentum and RSI both show a little bit more bearishness after today's session. Thought we might hold up after the bounce at the 21 EMA, maybe get a little bit of an upswing. Didn't happen. I was expecting that to be very short term, and it was. It was just on the Friday session, and it continued to sell here into the Monday. And just to round off these companies, you can see how bearish everything is. Another down move on Meta, 1.5% or so. Broadcom even selling off about 2.5%. Everything looks like a topping pattern though. You can see looks like a double top. Maybe you could argue high, lower high here. Selling off now, down a little bit more after hours, almost $2 there, about 1%. And Meta sold off right to the 55 EMA, got another touch there. Momentum bearish, RSI bearish. If it breaks here, your next level for me is down at 564.51. There is a lot of choppy levels in here. You can see the highly traded zone, 576.52. That would be interesting, but realistically, I would expect this to go to the low of this consolidation. Moving over to staples and discretionaries, got a little bit of an everything sell here, down over 1% on staples, 1.5%, 1.6% on discretionaries, right to the trend here. Talked about that being the next level, and we went right to it. And Doji selling a little bit after hours. Momentum bearish, RSI bearish on both of these. Everything sell, definitely not a great time for markets. Moving over to Breadth. Breadth double bottomed on the 20-day, caught a little bit of a bounce into the end of the session, mid-session in here. You can see momentum still swinging to bullish, RSI retesting the SMA, interesting. Still very, very low on 20-day, between that 5 and 10%. We'll see how it plays out on the 50-day though, with a lower low, resumption of bearish momentum, RSI breaking back down. Key level now is going to be that 15.15 level. We thought this was going to happen with the big breakdown here, but now we're getting retracement back to the lows. That's interesting, retesting the low. So 15.15, that's your next level. We'll see if we get a touch there. The low of today was a 16.30, so we almost got there already. We'll see if markets treat this as a bit of a short-term bottom or not. Right now, does not look super great. Moving over to yields, we actually got a really aggressive sell on yields, about 2% on both of these, back below the 4.25 level here for the 2-year, back below the 4.55 level here for the 10-year. Yields selling off pretty aggressively here on the Monday session. And it's definitely interesting to see yields going down while equities are going down. I would have expected equities to outperform a little bit with the big sell-off that we had, closed on the low, broke some levels, momentum stepping down, RSIs breaking through the SMAs on both of these here. Interesting to see that. So I wonder if there's something I'm not tracking that's pushing yields down that's also spooking equities. Something to keep an eye on here through the end of the year. And then looking at the dollar, again, very, very curious to see yields going down and the dollar staying positive. 0.06% on the day, still cannot close below this level here. 108 is the level. We tried to break back below it briefly on the 20th. Since then, we've been above it on a closing basis. You can see the price action here. Big dip down early, rallied into the session, mid-session sold off a little bit, and seems to be upswinging a little bit into the close. Moving over to bonds, both of these pretty positive on the day. 0.07 and 0.8% here for TLT, up more after hours, momentum swinging. We said this was the zone off of this trend line with the low, lower low. Still expecting a little bit of a rally here. Want to see it get back to 89.16. We overthrew the low from back here in April. Seems to be like we're finding some support in there after being pretty oversold. You can also see some volume ramping to the upside here as we're getting a retracement to the upside. So a little bit of volume coming through. Seems like bonds are going to find a little bit of a bounce. Again, not sure exactly what's triggering that or if it's just a technical basis, but seems like bonds are rallying here over the next couple days in my opinion. Moving over to the VIX, you can see the VIX did rally pretty aggressive, pushed clean through that 1850 level. The high of day was 19.2, almost got to that 20 level, but momentum continues to go bullish, stayed positive 9.2%. RSI also breaking above the SMA there, continuing to trend up. So looks like we're going to get a little bit more volatility. Based on this move, I would expect to push at least to 20, probably into the zone 23 to 24 makes sense as well. Moving over to my accounts, I did not do well. I missed the move in the pre-market, which is upsetting. On a relative basis, I guess I did okay because the NASDAQ was down $7 and I was only down about $5 across this account. But either way, not what I really wanted. Did well in the IWM, took that position off early and then managed to put it back in a way that made money, so that was good. If I had done the same kind of trading in my individual account, I definitely would have been in better position, but I just didn't, and that sucks. So right now, I held the Russell position because it was doing much better. The Qs looked terrible into the close, and now they're selling after hours, so we'll see how it does tomorrow. In terms of position, covered call here for the 220 for $3 credit. There's about $2.50 left on it, so 1% over the week. Collect that 1% and then we'll see what happens. If it continues to sell super aggressive, I'll take the shares off. But for now, it does look okay on the Russell. Everything else looks pretty awful. Let me know down in the comment section what you thought of the charts in the move today. Was it surprising to you or was it expected? Let me know. Otherwise, like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video. Make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.